The drums were loud. They shook the ground like thunder. The crowd screamed and clapped, excited for blood. In the middle of the stone arena stood a deep pit, dark and wide. Around it, fires burned in tall metal bowls. This was the beast pit where criminals were fed to monsters. Lyra stood at the edge of the pit. Her hands were tied behind her back. Her purple skin was bruised, her eyes filled with fear. She was just a young alien girl, barely an adult by her people's standards. Her crime? Stealing food? Not for herself, but for her sick little brother. The council didn't care. The punishment was death. The priestess of the tribe raised her staff. Her golden robe glittered in the firelight. "Let her fate be sealed," she shouted. The crowd roared louder. Guards pushed Lyra forward. She stumbled, shaking as the edge of the pit came closer. Far above, standing near the back of the crowd, a human man watched. His name was Jake, a visitor from the Galactic Alliance. He was sent to study the alien tribes for peace talks. He wasn't supposed to interfere. That was the rule. But what he saw now twisted his stomach with anger. "She's just a girl," he whispered. Suddenly the ground trembled. A heavy door inside the pit slid open. Something massive moved in the shadows. The beast had awakened. The crowd grew quiet. Lyra looked down into the pit. Hot steam rose up. She couldn't see the monster, but she could hear its growl. Deep, hungry. Her legs shook. She took a deep breath and closed her eyes. She accepted her death. The guards shoved her in. She fell. She hit the ground hard. Her breath knocked out. She coughed and rolled over, trying to stand. Her feet burned. The floor was hot. The growl grew louder. Something was coming. The beast stepped into the light. It was huge. Bigger than any creature Lyra had ever seen. Black scales, thick claws, and 4 glowing red eyes. Saliva dripped from its jaws. It sniffed the air and turned its head toward her, and then it charged. Lyra screamed. She ran, but the pit was small. There was nowhere to hide. Above, Jake clenched his fists. He saw enough. The people around him cheered for the kill, but he didn't care about them. He jumped over the barrier and landed on the outer rim of the pit. "Hey!" someone shouted. "What are you doing?" yelled a guard. Jake ignored them. He pulled a small device from his belt and pressed it. A small panel on his arm lit up. His hidden tech came alive. With one more jump, he landed inside the pit. The crowd gasped. Lyra froze when she saw the man land in front of her, a human. "Here," the beast growled louder. It saw Jake and turned its attention. Jake raised his left arm. The device shot out a flash of blue light and hit the beast's eye. The creature screamed and stopped, shaking its head. Jake ran to Lyra and cut her ropes. "Can you walk?" he asked. Lyra was shocked. "Yes, but why? Why are you helping me?" "No time," Jake said. "We're getting out of here." Above them, the priestess shouted in fury. "The human has broken our law. Stop him." Guards grabbed their rifles. The beast roared again and lunged. Jake pulled Lyra behind him and aimed the device again. Another flash of blue light hit the beast's leg, freezing it for a moment. It wouldn't last long. "Climb," Jake shouted. He boosted Lyra toward a hanging rope net on the wall. She climbed fast, hands shaking. Jake followed close behind. Shots rang out. Guards fired, but the pit's walls protected them for now. The beast roared again and jumped, almost reaching Jake's boot. He pulled himself up just in time. When they reached the top, Jake grabbed Lyra's hand and ran through the shocked crowd. People moved aside, confused and afraid. No one had ever defied the priestess before. "They'll kill you for this," Lyra shouted as they ran. "Yeah," Jake said, breathing hard, "but not today." Behind them, alarms blared. Hunters were being called, but Jake had a plan. He wasn't going to let the girl die for kindness, not on his watch. Asterisk, the jungle. Trees groaned in the wind as the echo of sirens reached the outer edge of the tribal arena. In the chaos, torches dropped and voices shouted, but Jake didn't stop. He gripped Lyra's hand tight as they vanished into the narrow tunnels carved under the arena long ago by slaves. Lyra stumbled, confused. Her mind couldn't keep up. One second, she was facing death, and the next, a strange human had jumped into the pit and saved her like it was nothing. Why? ... Why would you do this? She finally asked, breathless. Jake didn't answer. His jaw was tight. His boots hit the ground with steady rhythm. He had broken the one rule every diplomat was warned about: never interfere with local punishment. And now he was a fugitive. Behind them, the priestess's voice boomed from loudspeakers. The human outsider has defied sacred law. Hunters, bring me his head and the girl's heart. Lyra flinched at the sound. She's not bluffing. I know, Jake said calmly. That's why we're not going back. They exited the tunnels and ran straight into the dense ash grass. Jungle. The leaves were silver, the sky red from the planet's twin suns, and the air burned with spice dust that stung the lungs. But Jake's suit adjusted. Lyra coughed violently. Her skin began to blister. Jake pulled off his own helmet and handed it to her. But you'll put it on, he said firmly. You need it more than I do. Lyra hesitated but obeyed. The moment she sealed the helmet, her lungs stopped. Burning, Jake wiped sweat from his face and kept moving. No one had ever seen a human run through the ash plains without protection. It was suicide. But Jake had always been a little different. Far above, a swarm of black hunting drones launched. From the temple, each was designed to track heartbeats, heat, and sound. Alongside them, a pack of tribal hunters rode six-legged beasts through the trees. Their orders were clear: no mercy. One of them, Captain Vrox, spoke to his beast through touch commands. Find them, tear the human apart, bring the girl alive. Meanwhile, Lyra and Jake found a stream hidden between thick vines. We'll follow the water, Jake said. Covers our scent. Lyra looked at him, still trying to understand. You're not from here. You don't even know me. Why would you risk your life? Jake paused. He stared at the alien sky. Then softly he said, because someone once saved me when I didn't deserve it either. Lyra was quiet. They walked in silence, the sounds of jungle creatures growing. Louder behind them. Something was getting close. Fast. Jake tapped a command on his wrist. A holographic map appeared. Old. Glitchy, but useful. There's a human scout shelter 2 miles from here. If we make it there, I can contact my team. And then, we leave this cursed place. Lyra stopped. I can't if I leave. They'll kill my brother. He's all I have. Jake blinked. You have a brother? She nodded, her eyes hardening. He's sick. That's why I stole the food. Jake looked away. For the first time, his plan felt not enough. We'll figure something out, he said. But even he didn't believe that. Suddenly, the leaves parted. A drone buzzed overhead, locking onto Jake's heat signature. Move, Jake shouted. Lyra and Jake jumped into the stream as a bolt of plasma hit a tree, exploding it into ash. More drones appeared, scanning. Jake pulled out a small EMP chip and threw it in the air. With a flash, the drones short-circuited and fell. But the blast gave away their location. The hunters would be close, and they were. Captain. Vrox spotted the smoke and grinned. He raised a long spear made of bone and metal. His beast howled and leaped forward. Time to die, human, he whispered Jake. And Lyra ran. They could hear the beasts behind them now. The sound of claws digging into dirt, the cracking of broken branches. Lyra cried out as a spear flew past her shoulder, cutting into a tree. Jake saw an old vine-covered ruin ahead. There, he yelled. They dove into the ruins just as more plasma shots rained down. Jake pressed his back against a stone wall, panting. Lyra looked at him. This is crazy. Jake smirked. You think this is bad? Wait till we fight back. Her eyes widened. You plan to fight them? Jake pulled a knife from his belt and checked his last 2 tech grenades. I didn't come to this planet for war, he said, but if they want one, they'll learn what humans are made of. The jungle was alive now, not with birds or wind, but with danger. The thick silver leaves of the ash jungle rattled as 6-legged beasts stormed through the underbrush. Alien hunters shouted war cries. Drones zoomed overhead, scanning heat and movement. The ground shook with each footstep of the chasing beasts. Jake didn't stop running behind him. Lyra followed, her small body struggling to keep up. "Don't slow down," he shouted, slashing branches with his blade. His arm bled where a sharp vine had cut him, but he ignored it. Pain could wait. Lyra tripped on a root. She fell hard and groaned, coughing inside the helmet Jake had given her. Jake turned back without hesitation. He grabbed her arm and pulled her to her feet. "I'm slowing you down," she said, her voice cracking. "Then I'll slow down with you," he replied. "Now move." Together they vanished deeper into the jungle. Captain Vrox growled as he stood over the footprints in the soft ash. The human was fast and smart. He had tricked the drones, used terrain to hide heat, and even wiped out to scout teams. But he couldn't run forever. The jungle would crush him. "Send in the hellhounds," Vrox ordered. From steel cages, smaller, sleeker beasts were release made for speed and scent. Their noses twitched. They howled. And then they ran. Jake and Lyra found a narrow crack in a giant dead tree. "In here?" Jake whispered. They slid inside the hollow trunk just as the hellhounds passed by. Lyra's breath caught. The creature's claws were inches away. She could smell its wet fur through the helmet. Jake placed a hand over her mouth gently, warning her not to make a sound. Time slowed. 1 minute. 2. Finally, the hellhounds passed. Lyra slumped in relief. Jake looked at her and smiled. "You've got maybe 10 minutes before they circle back." She nodded. "Then we run."
Out they ran till
Their lungs burned, but this time something changed. The jungle opened into a strange clearing. The sky above had turned dark gray clouds swirled, and violet lightning cracked in the distance. In the middle of the clearing was a tall black statue. It was broken, half buried, covered in moss and vines. Round it, bones lay scattered. Gasped. I've heard stories of this place." Jake scanned the area. "What is it?" "They call it the Grave of Outsiders. A cursed place where other aliens tried to fight the tribe and failed. No one comes here." "Perfect," Jake muttered. "Let's stay a while." They slipped inside the ruin. The air was cold. Stone walls showed carvings, humans and aliens fighting side by side. Strange writing glowed faintly. Lyra touched a broken tablet. "This is old. Older than our priestess." Jake examined the carvings. "Looks like your people once fought with humans, as friends." Lyra looked at him. "Then why does my tribe hate humans now?" Jake shook his head. "History is always rewritten by those in power." They didn't have time to wonder more. A howl echoed in the trees. "They found us," Jake said. Jake set his last 2 tech grenades near the entrance. "When they step in, these will flash burn their eyes and fry their cums. We run during the confusion." Lyra frowned. "We can't. Just keep running." Jake looked at her. "I'm not running. I'm protecting you." She stepped closer. "Fierce now. Then help me protect my brother. We need to do more." Before Jake could answer, a plasma bolt hit the edge of the ruin. "Hunters were here." Jake pulled Lyra behind the statue. "When I say go, you run toward the left opening. Stay low. But do it." The hunters entered. Jake triggered the grenades. Flash, screams, confusion. Lyra ran fast and low. Jake followed after tossing smoke flares. The two disappeared into the shadows once more by the time they reached the river. Lyra collapsed to her knees, shaking. Jake sat beside her, panting hard. "We made it," she whispered. "For now," Jake said, scanning the jungle. "But they're not stopping." Lyra looked up. "Then maybe. Maybe it's time we stop running." Jake met her eyes. There was fire in her now. Not just fear, but rage. "Purpose. We find your brother," Jake said. "Then we hit them back." Lyra nodded. "And we show them that mercy is not weakness. It's that the human who broke the rules wasn't foolish. He was right." Jake gave a small smile. "Let's start a little rebellion." The wind howled. Through the red canyon walls, as Jake and Lyra made their way through the narrow path, their clothes were torn. Their boots were heavy with dust and blood. Dot, 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 their eyes. Their eyes burned with purpose. Ahead, hidden between rock and sand, sat a broken metal hatch, almost invisible under layers of time. "This is it," Jake said softly. "Old Alliance outpost. Built before the priestess even ruled." Lyra looked confused. "How do you know it's still working?" Jake smiled faintly. "I don't, but I'm gambling on human stubbornness." He knelt and wiped away the dust. Beneath the surface was a faded Alliance emblem, a star crossed with a sword. He tapped his wrist device. The hatch clicked, still stubborn. He whispered, "Dot," and sighed. The shelter smelled like rust and old dreams. Lights flickered as ancient systems came online. Vents hissed. A soft robotic voice welcomed them in a dead language. Lyra shivered. "It's cold." Jake found an emergency blanket and wrapped it around her. "Stay close. Don't touch anything that hums." They passed rows of dusty monitors, empty lockers, and shattered drones. In the back, behind a thick glass wall, a small medbay still blinked with green lights. "Bingo," Jake said. He stepped inside and activated the old AI assistant. It blinked to life, slow and stuttering, but aware. "Human DNA confirmed. Welcome, Officer Jake Mercer." Lyra stepped back. "It knows you?" Jake shook his head. "It knows my rank, not me." He turned to her. "Let me scan your wounds." The scanner passed over Lyra's body, beeped in concern. "She's weak," the AI said. "Toxins in bloodstream, dehydration, minor bone stress." Jake got to work. He injected her with a clear serum, placed a patch on her neck, and wrapped her sprained wrist. "You'll feel better in an hour." Lyra stared at him. "You're not a soldier, are you?" Jake paused. "No," he said. "I was a rescue officer. But I stopped, after I failed once." "What happened?" He sighed. "There was a girl, on another world. She asked for help. I followed protocol instead. She died waiting." "Right." Silence filled the room. "That's why. You jumped into the pit?" she asked. Jake nodded slowly. "I won't let that happen again." Outside the shelter, storm clouds gathered. But something else moved too. Captain Vrox crouched beside the broken vines outside the canyon. His beast sniffed the rocks. "He's hiding somewhere near Vrox." Hissed. And this time, no mistakes. He tapped a crystal shard on his armor. Pulsed. Far away, the priestess smiled. "Send in the sci-fi," she ordered. Back in the shelter, Lyra stood near the cum station. "It's not just about us now," she said. "My people suffer every day. My brother is still in the cages. If we run, they die." Jake powered up the satellite dish. "Then we don't run." A low hum filled the air. Dust shook from the ceiling. Screens lit up. Jake sent a coded message. "Through old Alliance frequency. This is Officer Jake Mercer. Code 2179. I've broken protocol." "I don't care. Send help. Send truth. I'm not letting this girl die." He hit send. Then the shelter shook. Boom. What was that? Lyra gasped. Jake ran to the screen. "They're bombing the canyon." Outside, fireballs rained from the sky alien. Tech guided by priestess rage, the rocks exploded. The shelter groaned. "We need to leave now," Jake shouted. He grabbed emergency packs, weapons, and pulled Lyra toward a side tunnel. But before leaving, Lyra looked back at the glowing monitors, still showing her people in pain. She turned to Jake. "Let's not run far. Let's run toward them." He stared at her, then gave a nod. "Okay. One last rescue." Aye. They disappeared into the tunnel toward the tribe's prison camps. Behind them, the shelter collapsed under falling rock. But the signal had been sent, and across the stars, help was listening. The sky turned red, not from sunset, from fire. The high priestess stood on her temple balcony, arms raised high, golden chains wrapped around her wrists. Below her, the capital square was full of chanting believers. Her voice echoed through The stone towers. The human dares to break our law. To steal what was meant for judgment. He brings chaos. And now we answer with cleansing fire. Behind her, a giant creature roared in a deep chamber, its body chained, its eyes glowing. A sacred beast used only once every generation, fed with rage, kept alive by fear. She turned to it and whispered, "Smell the outsider. Burn the traitor girl. Let this land remember who rules." The beast's chains snapped. The gates opened. Far from the city in the shadow of the canyon, Jake and Lyra moved silently through the wild paths. Each step took them closer to the hidden prison camp, the place where the tribe kept its sinners. Lyra's little brother was one of them. They hid during the day, moved at night. Jake kept checking his wrist device. "No response yet," he said, frustrated. "The Alliance should have picked up the signal." "They probably did," Lyra replied, her eyes sharp. "But this isn't their fight." Jake looked at her. The timid girl from the pit was gone now. In her place stood someone braver and graver. Someone ready to fight. They reached a high cliff. Below them stretched the prison camp iron walls, electric towers, guard beasts, and cages. So many cages. Lyra's hands clenched into fists. "They're just children." Jake pulled out a small scope. 2 guards at the entrance, 4 more by the cells. Motion sensors. And I bet there are drones, too. "I know a way in," Lyra said quietly. "I used to sneak water to the others. There's a tunnel under the west wall." Jake nodded. "Good. We move at sundown." But as night fell, the ground trembled. Lyra's eyes widened. That's not thunder. In the far distance, flames rose. Trees exploded. A roaring human and terrible shook the sky. Jake stood up. "What the hell is that?" From the jungle line came screams, tribal hunters, running away then. They saw it. A massive beast, taller than 10 men, claws glowing with heat, skin like molten stone, marched through the trees. Everything it touched burned. The high priestess had released her final weapon. "They're not after us anymore," Jake said, eyes narrowing. "They're burning everything," Lyra gasped. "My brother's in the cages. That thing doesn't care who it kills." Jake grabbed his pack. "Then we don't wait for sundown. We move now." They ran. Through brush, past collapsed guards. Around burning trees, the air was thick with smoke and the smell of blood. At the camp's west wall, Lyra found the tunnel entrance. This way, they crawled through darkness. Rats squeaked, drifted down like snow. On the other side, they emerged behind a line of cages. "Over there," Lyra cried. A small boy lay curled up, coughing. His skin was pale. He was no older than 8. Jake rushed forward and opened the cage. "Got him." The prisoners looked up, hope flashing in their tired eyes. Lyra bit her lip. "We can't leave them." Jake glanced around. "All right, but make it quick." She ran to each cage, speaking softly. "We're getting you out. Stay quiet. Follow me." Jake planted small charges on the tower generators. "I hope these still work." Behind him, the ground split open. The giant beast had arrived. It burst into the camp like a god of destruction. Walls fell. Fires spread. Its roar was deafening. Jake activated the charges. Boom! The towers exploded. Power failed. Gates fell open. "Now," he shouted. Lyra led the prisoners into the jungle as Jake slessed, grabbed her brother and followed. The beast saw them. It chased. Jake ran harder than he ever had. Behind him, trees turned to ash. The heat singed his back. He looked down at Lyra's brother. "Hang on, kid." Then a sound from the sky. A dropship roared overhead. Alliance insignia. Blue and silver. It opened fire on the beast, driving it back. Jake smiled. "Took you long enough." Later that night, the survivors sat near the river. Alliance medics treated wounds. Children slept under warm blankets. The jungle was quiet again. Lyra sat beside Jake, holding her brother close. "You didn't have to do all this," she said. "I know," Jake replied. "But I couldn't let them win." She looked at him. You didn't just break the rules, Jake. You broke their chains. Asterisk, the wind at the canyon's edge tasted of ash and sparks. Jake stood on a ridge overlooking the last obstacle between freedom and fire, the Firegate, a massive wall of energy built by the ancestors, meant to block invaders long ago. But now, the High Priestess used it as a prison door. Nothing passed through without her blessing. Behind Jake, dozens of rescued prisoners waited, children, elders, wounded rebels. Among them stood Lyra, holding her little brother's hand, her jaw clenched. Jake turned to her. That gate will melt anyone who walks through it. We need to shut it down. Lyra stepped beside him. No. Who can help? Far back in the shadows, bound in metal cuffs, sat Torvika, former temple engineer. Lyra had freed him when the guards fell during the chaos. He'd refused to help the priestess build weapons for years, so they had chained him in silence. Now he stared at Jake with curious, tired eyes. You're the human who jumped into the pit, Torvak said. You're either mad or very brave. Jake smirked. Maybe both. Lyra knelt beside him. Can you shut the Firegate? Torvak nodded slowly. It was built with old human tech. If you get me to the control core beneath the ridge, I can reroute its energy. Jake didn't wait. Let's go. Yes. They moved toward the ridge. The ground began to rumble again. The priestess had not fallen. From the canyon far below, her army rose. Hundreds of armored hunters, beasts reborn, with battle tattoos. And war machines powered by rage and stolen science leading them was the priestess herself, face painted in gold, staff glowing with ancient fire. Her voice filled the air like a curse. You run, you hide, you defy me yet. The fire will judge you all. Her eyes landed on Lyra. You little traitor. You were given a chance to die with dignity. But now you'll die screaming, Jake growled, stepping forward. Not today. He handed Torvak a portable transmitter. Stay low. I'll hold them. Torvak hesitated. But you'll die. Only if I stop moving, Jake said, and ran down at the canyon floor. Jake planted plasma charges near the narrow pass's last defense. As the enemy approached, he stood tall, weapon raised. Heart steady, they charged. Jake pressed the trigger. Boom. Rock shattered. Flames lit up the sky. Dozens of hunters fell. But still more came. Jake turned and sprinted back toward the ridge. Meanwhile, Lyra watched the Firegate glow brighter. The air sizzled. She could see Torvak working fast, wires and sparks flying. From the control panel, alarms blared. It's overheating, he shouted. Can you stop it? Only one way. Have to reverse the energy flow through the main core. Manually, Jake reached them just then, out of breath. That'll fry anyone inside it. Torvak nodded grimly. I know. Before he could move, Jake stepped forward. I'll do it. Lyra grabbed his arm. No. Jake looked at her. Gently. If I don't, they'll catch up, and none of us leave. Tears filled her eyes. You've already saved us again and again. Jake touched her forehead. Then let me save you one last time. He entered the core chamber. Glowing cave of energy beneath the earth. Sparks danced across the floor. The control pillar pulsed. Like a heart, Jake placed his hands on the interface. The pain was instant, but he didn't scream. He thought of the children, of Lyra, of what mercy could do when strength failed. He twisted the node, the gate above them, hissed, then flickered. Then boom, it collapsed. The prisoners looked up, stunned a clear path finally. Lyra ran toward the control cave inside. She found Jake, barely standing, eyes glowing with fading light. I told you I was stubborn, he whispered. She held him up. You're not dying here, no, said a new voice. A dropship landed beside them. Alliance officers stormed. Out. Officer Mercer, the captain said. Your signal reached us. Reinforcements are in orbit. Jake grinned. Took your sweet time. The tribe's army arrived too late. They found an empty ridge. The Firegate was gone. The prisoners had vanished, and far above in the clouds, human ships circled like guardians that night, in a new camp far from war. Jake lay in a recovery. Pod Lyra sat beside him, her brother asleep in her lap. The rebellion had started because one man broke a rule, but it would live because one girl found the courage to keep going. Morning broke over the new camp like a quiet promise. The sun rose without fire, without fear. For the first time in years, the skies above the valley held no warships, no hunting drones, and no smoke. Children laughed in the open air. Wounded rebels were healing. Tents stood tall beside human aid vehicles, and Alliance banners fluttered in the breeze. In the center tent, Jake Mercer opened his eyes. He winced. Still alive? He muttered. Lyra smiled beside him, eyes wet with relief. Barely. You almost melted your brain saving us. Jake smirked weakly. Good thing I wasn't using it, she laughed. It was the first real laugh she had allowed herself in years. But then she grew quiet. You didn't just open the fire gate. You broke something far older. The fear, the silence, the lies. Jake sat up slowly, surrounded by medtech monitors. Where's your brother? He's sleeping, she said softly. For the first time without coughing, he nodded. Good. Outside. A young Alliance officer poked his head in. Sir, the council is gathering. We're waiting for your report. Jake looked at Lyra. Let's go change the future. In a large circular tent, leaders from both sides sat together, humans. Alien elders, former prisoners, and even a few quiet temple guards who had deserted the high priestess after seeing her cruelty. Jake stood at the front. Tired but firm. The tribe is broken, yes, he began, but not destroyed. And we're not here to crush it. We're here to rebuild what was stolen from it. Some officers looked uncertain. She used sacred beasts, forbidden tech, child labor, one muttered. And she ruled through fear, Jake interrupted. But fear dies when truth rises. He turned toward the crowd. Let Lyra speak. Lyra stepped forward, unsure at first. But as her eyes met the room, she stood straighter. I was born into silence, she began, taught to obey. Taught that the priestess's word was the only truth. But I saw what truth really is, when a human broke our laws to save one starving. Girl, the crowd listened. I saw it when he gave me his only air mask, when he ran into fire, when he faced monsters not to win, but to protect. She paused. He didn't come here to conquer. He came here to care. She turned to Jake, voice trembling. You changed everything. The room was silent. Then one by one, the people stood, not in protest, but in respect. An elder spoke. The pit used to be our fear, but now we sit. Was a test, and he passed it. A human officer nodded. If the people vote to restore this land as free territory, the Alliance will support it. Cheers rose. The war was over. Later that day, Lyra walked with Jake by the river. Birds returned to the trees. Sunlight danced across the water. Everything's different now, she said. Jake nodded. It always is. After the fight? Want to build something? She said. A school? A place where no one learns hate? Jake smiled. You'd be good at that? She turned to him, serious. But I'll need help. Someone stubborn, brave, foolish enough to jump into a monster pit. Jake raised an eyebrow. Know anyone like that? Lyra took his hand. I might. Months later, a new monument stood. In the old arena, not of beasts, but of a human and an alien girl standing side by side. At the base, written in both languages, Mercy broke the chains.